Okay, so Strawinski and Whittaker here,
Howdy.
analysing a piece of text written by Booker T. Washington in 1895. It's called the Atlanta Exposition. Booker T. Washington, you know who he is. He's a leader an African American leader. He runs a college called the Tuskegee Institute. He wants progress for African Americans, and he's got an idea of how it's going to happen. And he's trying to get people on board.
All people, right?
All people.
Yeah.
All people. He wants to get black people involved. He wants to get white people involved. And this is an excerpt from the speech that we were looking at in class. And it's actually, we can divide it right in half, can't we?
I think,
More or
yeah,
less.
Yeah, definitely.
There's one section that's targeted at African Americans. That's that first section. And then the second section is really targeted directly at white people. So there's a saying, isn't there? You know, you can't please all the people all the time. He is trying to please all of the people
Correct,
right
yes,
now
right
and
now.
get everybody on board. And I
Yeah.
think it's a pretty brave attempt. This is a guy who knows how difficult it is to get whites in the South on board.
Because he's Southern,
With,
correct?
yeah, he
Yeah.
is. He was born into slavery. He knows the slave system. He's seen Reconstruction rise and fall. He's seeing that African Americans are still in a pretty bad position in the South. Are still discriminated against. Are still at the bottom of the ladder.
So he's got some firsthand knowledge of what they're up against.
Yes, indeed.
And so he's giving this speech, and the audience, who's in the audience listening to this speech?
Whites.
Mainly whites.
Whites.
Okay. All right. So that's something that's worth, I think, noting.
Yes.
In this. So should we read it? Let's read the whole thing and then
Yeah.
kind of take it apart.
Yeah. And of course, just to clarify, if the two sections, and the first section is talking to African Americans would have heard this not at the actual meeting where you gave the speech, but in the newspapers.
Right.
Right? There are lots of black newspapers that would have, and regular newspapers that would have had this published.
All right.
Right. So he says, I would say, cast down your bucket where you are. Cast it down in making friends in every manly way of the people of all races by whom we are surrounded.
Cast it down in agriculture, mechanics, in commerce, in domestic service, and in the professions. No race can prosper till it learns that there is as much dignity in tilling a field as in writing a poem. It is at the bottom of life we must begin, and not at the top.
To those of the white race who look to the incoming of those of foreign birth and strange tongue and habits for the prosperity of the South, were I permitted, I would repeat what I say to my own race. Cast down your bucket where you are.
Cast it down among the 8 millions of Negroes whose habits you know, whose fidelity and love you have tested. As we have proved our loyalty to you in the past, in nursing your children, watching by the sickbed of your mothers and fathers, and often following them with tear-dimmed eyes to their graves, so in the future, in our humble way, we shall stand by you with a devotion that no foreigner can approach, ready to lay down our lives, if need be, in defense of yours, interlacing our industrial, commercial, civil, and religious life with yours in a way that shall make the interests of both races one.
In all things that are purely social, we can be as separate as the fingers, yet one as the hand, in all things essential to mutual progress. So he's saying this in that 1895. Maybe we'll look at where he's talking to African Americans.
Right, yeah, so let's check out that first part. All right.
So he's got this weird metaphor.
Right.
Cast down your bucket where you are. And he says it in both sections of our little excerpt here. Cast down your bucket. So you're on a boat.
Mm-hmm.
If you cast down your bucket where you are, you will find that, and he talks about this later in the passage, he says you're going to find you've got sparkling, crystal clear, beautiful, yummy water.
Right, yeah.
Even though it looks like it's sea and it's
it doesn't
salty.
look right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you actually...
Trust me.
Yeah, trust me. It's going to be all right.
Yeah.
And you'll find this delicious water.
So
so from wherever you are, from your position right now, that's where you need to make your to cast your bucket, so to speak, or make your stance, or figure out this thing.
All right. And so you're going to make friends in every manly way of the people of all races. All races. You're going to make friends in all races.
All races.
All
Everybody.
races. So
you gotta have
whites
that.
too, right?
Yeah.
And then he gives us a list of places that we need to cast down our bucket into.
Right.
Cast it down to these things.
Mhm.
But we're starting where? We're starting, let's call a spade, right?
Yeah.
We're starting at the bottom of life.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
That's where we're coming
Bottom
from.
of life, where we must begin and not at the top. And that's why he gives these kinds of, these items, right? Domestic service, professions. It's not, it's not the Senate where you need to start here. It's from these, I don't want to call them menial jobs, but that's the only word that I'm coming up with.
Yeah.
But,
the trades,
right,
so things that not being professors necessarily.
Right.
He's not saying that you can't do it, right?
Sure.
But he's saying that it's just as much dignity in tilling a field as writing a poem. So he's saying, it doesn't have to be, glorious, glorious work. It can be humble work. Agriculture, planting crops. Right. Mechanics, working in a factory.
Sure.
Skilled work, but working in a factory. In commerce, become a businessman.
Sure, yeah.
Right? Or a woman. Yeah, an entrepreneur, just sell stuff, buy stuff. Domestic service, you can be a servant in a house.
Absolutely.
You can be a butler. You could be a cook.
And there's dignity in it.
There's dignity in it. And the professions. I suppose by the professions he means teaching. Mm-hmm. He means lawyers. Does he mean lawyers?
Maybe. It could be any of the, the professional, maybe accounting, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what he means by profession. So I know what's meant these days.
Right.
It means lawyer, doctor, but I'm not quite sure what he means.
Yeah, I don't know if that's if he's...
And I'm glad that we've got a question mark here because, when you look at these things, it's hot. You often cannot answer every single question.
Absolutely. Especially we're looking at this is 2017. I mean, we're looking at something well over, 100 years ago. Yeah. That the context, it's going to be different, and it's hard. It is. It's difficult.
All right. So no race can prosper until it learns that you can these humble jobs, these maybe menial jobs, these maybe not incredibly intellectual jobs.
Right.
But everyone has to do it, and there's dignity in it too.
Right.
So saying to black people, and I think there's a subtext here.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's saying, listen, I know the segregation.
Right.
I know you're second-class citizens.
Yep.
I know there are separate drinking fountains increasingly. Yep. I know that you're not allowed to vote. I know that it's kind of messed up and everyone's against you. You're not allowed to serve on juries. But you know what? If you want to end this stuff, first of all, you've got to start where you are. You've got to cast down your bucket. You've got to kind of prove yourself.
Right.
In a
It's
way.
Working within the system.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Don't make a fuss.
Right.
Just get on with your job.
Yeah. Just grin and bear it. It'll get better.
Yeah.
I think maybe
because then they'll recognize that you've got more than just you're more than just a body, a breathing body that can do work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. So that's how he gets the black people in on this. So he's got this outward thing that has this subtext, I think. Yeah. And then he wants to get the white people on board as well.
But then he gets really kind of he's a sucker, basically.
A little bit. Yeah. A little bit. Yes.
Yeah. He's saying he's got a different tone in the second.
Absolutely. So I think he starts this right here, and so now he's speaking almost directly to the white race on this, and they're looking at the incoming of those of foreign birth and strange tongue, right? So immigrants, right? New immigrants. They don't speak English.
No.
We don't know what they look like. They're all born we don't know where they're from or anything like that. So you get this new crop of people that are coming in, and so he's identifying them, saying that they should do the same thing.
Yeah. Instead of looking to these foreigners, cast down your bucket right where you are.
Yeah, come on in, and that's where you need to.
And he's thinking about the South.
Yep.
He's not talking about the North, where a lot of these immigrants are. Mm-hmm. Cast down your bucket. Well, you don't need immigrants. You've got something right here. What have you got?
Right.
You've got 8 millions.
Right, of these.
Of people. And then he says, these guys are great. They're so much better than foreigners.
Right, absolutely.
Their habits. It's not
Yep.
like those foreigners who
Yeah.
habits,
We don't know what theirs are.
Yeah,
And they've been here long enough, so you've formed this relationship already, proving their loyalty. Right? Proving their loyalty in the past and doing all of this stuff.
They nurse your children.
Watching your parents, while your parents are dying, they're there taking care of you. And then they follow them so far that they follow them when those people die. They go to the graves and they're sad too when that happens, which seems counterintuitive, I think.
Yeah, when you consider that most people reading this are going to be thinking, this is kind of like slaves whose masters die, and the slaves are now, wiping tears from their eyes because they were so attached to their owners. And I think very few African Americans would actually believe this. But remember, he's not talking to African Americans right now. He's talking to whites who have this viewpoint that, I remember those. They did cry when white people died.
Maybe they're not so bad, right? And then he sets it up. So he's got this, so saying that they've established this relationship, and that you can build on it, and in the future, that they're going to stand by with the devotion. This is that no foreigner can approach.
So reinforcing that kind of anti-immigrant. I mean, he's almost a nativist.
Right?
I mean, he's not almost a nativist. This is nativist talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, as I'm reading this, I'm thinking this, that he's like, maybe he's shifting the spotlight onto the immigrants. Be like, they're much worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got these Eastern Europeans coming in.
Yeah. Bringing their socialism. We got the Italians with the anarchism and maybe the Black Hand or the mafia or something.
Nearly as devoted as we are.
Right. And I think at this time, 1895, people are starting to question the unrestricted immigration. Right. People are suggesting literacy tests. For immigrants to make sure that they're more. They're more useful, and somehow they've got more of a. They're assimilating, like Adolphus Bush was. Already learning the language.
Right, immediately.
Before they get here.
Yep, they got to know English before they show up. Right. And then he starts going into all of the ways in which they can combine in order to make the interests of both races one. Right. That's the end goal, or to make the interests of both races one. And when you intertwine industrial, commercial, civil, all of that stuff, when it starts to intertwine and interlace, as he points it, those interests can become one. And then he brings it home with this metaphor about the hand.
Yeah, and this here, just like in the top bit, he ends with this subtext, which is in all things that are purely social. We can be as separate as the fingers. So he's saying we don't need to integrate the races. We don't have to. No, it's all right. Calm down, white people. We are not going to. Well, I'm not proposing that black people are equal on a social level to white people. It's not what I'm saying. But we can be one hand. We can be one people when it's essential to mutual progress.
Right. Yeah. We both want to move forward.
He's talking about making money.
Together. I would think.
He's talking about we're all going to be making mutual progress, because he's talking about work in a lot of this. Right? Yeah. Immigrants come in. Industrial, commercial, civil, and religious life, right? Industrial, America's an industrial powerhouse, a commercial powerhouse.
Yeah.
And then the others, we'll do that stuff
That's
too.
fine. We got to intertwine that as well.
Yeah. But we can be separate. We can have separate drinking fountains.
Sure.
No problem.
Right.
But we'll work together, and if white people, if you know, this is. You're an idiot if you don't realize what you've got right in front of you. Look no further.
Right,
than black people. And he's also making a kind of a pledge here that black people are not going to, if people who are on board with this are not going to try and get more than just a chance to make money, a chance to learn to be an economic success
Yeah.
before they ask for anything else.
Right. And that's what they'll do. And then, the more that I'm reading this and the more I look into it, I'm thinking he might be more subversive than I initially gave him credit for. Because when I read this, I was like, what is he doing? Like, this sounds awful. This doesn't seem like the best course of action for African Americans. And I'm not suggesting that it was or is, but I think he's looking further down the road.
Yes,
And he's playing the long game here.
absolutely. I think he was a realist.
Yeah,
W.E.B. Du Bois was an idealist.
sure.
You need both.
Yep.
But listen, W.E.B. Du Bois did not get invited to the White House to
Yeah.
have dinner with the president.
Yes.
Booker T. Washington
Washington
did. He had the ear of the President of the United States of America.
Yeah.
A racist president
Of course.
the United
Yeah.
States of America.
Yeah. Invited him.
Yeah.
to the house.
Because if you're white, I mean, pretty much, you're a racist. 1895.
Sure.
I mean,
I think just by default,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's.
So he knows what he's dealing with, and I think he deals with it in quite an intelligent way. Although he's been criticized by historians
Sure.
for so many years.
Absolutely. And you could see why.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. Thanks, Mr. Whittaker.
Thank you, sir.
Very interesting. Yeah. Well, we could always cut this last bit.
Yeah, but
Can you click the QuickTime at the bottom? Yeah, there it is. See it up at the top now?
okay.